Today, I will be reviewing community-created spells in Wizard101. The spells featured in this video all have art I'd consider close enough to the Wizard101 style. My critiques will be based on uniqueness and whether or not the spell would greatly affect PvP and PvE. There will be a lot of spells featured in this video, so I won't go into great depths for each one. Credits for each spell will be listed in the description. If you disagree with what I say for any of these spells, please let me know why in the comments. Without further ado, let's begin. Eternal Dragon is a life spell with art similar to that of Thieving Dragon, the difference being it's scaled down in green. For 7 pips and a shadow pip, it deals 845 life damage while setting up a 25% life damage bubble. Life doesn't really have a hit like this. The only spell that can be compared to it is Gnomes, which is fairly relative considering Eternal Dragon also requires a shadow pip. This would be huge for advanced combat without breaking the balance. Almost every life wizard would be packing at least 2 of these in PvP. As for PvE, it likely wouldn't see any use. Next we have Mythic Deer Knight and Lively Deer Knight. There's nothing really special about either of these. Lively Deer does the exact same damage as Deer Knight, but the damage spread is a bit different. Mythic Deer does 30 damage more. Both of these could see use in PvP and Arc 1 to 2 PvE. If they were ever added to the game, the pip cost would be 3 plus a school pip. Next up we have Purifying Flame and Purifying Embers. They're similar spells, but Purifying Embers is an AoE heal. Purifying Flame could be used if learned early on in Krokotopia or late in Wizard City. I can't imagine Purifying Embers, the AoE alternative, being used in any situation. There's better spell alternatives, and if you were playing solo, you'd just use Purifying Flame over Purifying Embers. Both spells are unique and have good art, but only Purifying Flame would see any use. Next we have Prolong, a 1-pip fire spell that's right off the bat, busted. Currently the only fire spell that extends the duration of a dot is Blast Off, and only does so for 1 turn. For 1 pip, you could extend, say, a Heckhound by 2 turns. This spell as is would never be put into the game. The pip cost would have to be increased to at least 3 or 4. Perpetual follows pretty much the same idea as the last spell, but for HOTS instead. It's also busted and would need a huge pip cost increase to ever be in the game. Kempt and Spotless are similar. These spells wouldn't be added to the game, but say if they were in the game, they'd both likely be banned from advanced combat. Outside of advanced combat, they'd see regular use. Extravagant is straightforward. It's just an epic upgrade, and like all the enchant spells, it would be banned in advanced content. It's unlikely we'll ever see an epic upgrade, however, this is a reasonable step up. Shadow Phantom is a shadow transformation that gives plus 50 shadow rating and plus 20% accuracy, but it reduces your resistance by 20%. The interesting thing about this spell is that with the upcoming Darkmoor update and the addition of new shadow transformations, we very well could see something like this. However, overall this spell is rather useless if not a detriment. The plus 20% accuracy is just there, and while the plus 50 shad rating is nice, you're giving up 20% resist for that. I don't think the spell would be used for any reason other than to look cool. We have a bunch of spells in this next one, and each one of them, especially Cryogenic Freeze, has good art. Cryogenic Freeze is fairly balanced. On a side note, the animation of the spell would likely be long. Anyway, its pip cost makes sense for what it does, and it might just be a little too good for 3 pips, but I don't think it's good enough to be 4 pips. It's at a sort of sweet spot. I can see this being used to some extent in more casual PvP variants like 3v3 and also sometimes in PvE. Mantle Convection can have a max of 195 damage per turn for the rest of the game. The spell could be used multiple times, and the more it's used, the more dangerous it would become. It would be easy to get rid of the dots, but it would just delay the game in PvP, so I feel like it would be PvP banned. In PvE, the spell could be useful all the way up to around Celestia. Overall, a pest, but one if ignored, could be deadly. Typhoon is rather unclear. I'm assuming it destroys all auras including the caster's aura if they have one. What I'm not so sure about is if it does damage to someone who doesn't have an aura on, and if it damages allies as well. This spell would be a bit too chaotic to be in Wiz. Equipoise is similar to what an Echo spell would do, except this does it without any requirement. Simple and rather effective. It would be great in both PvP variants and PvE with a party. Additionally, this does it to all allies and enemies, making the 3 pip cost worth it. Heart of Gold right off the bat would be PvP banned, and I don't think KI would add new spells just to PvP ban them. I could be wrong on that last part though. The spell does seem quote unquote reasonable considering Dryad heals for 200 per pip, but only single targeted. For comparison, Pigsy for 2 pips and a life pip heals for 750, and a school pip is worth about 2.5 pips, so the heal value on it would be roughly 167 per pip, which is significantly more than Heart of Gold. Overall, the spell would be useful with basically no pips or a boatload of pips, but not in between. Mass Shatter is pretty good, but I think the pip cost should be 5 instead of 6. It would probably be PvP banned and it would be a major problem solver in PvE. However, its existence would also be problematic. Some boss gimmicks would become useless, and enemy shields would pretty much be swatted away. I don't think this spell could be added to the current game. Last Resort seems like the perfect storm spell considering everyone from the Storm School loves gambling, myself included. However, the creator made it a death spell. If the opponent doesn't have the appropriate response, they will suffer, but if they do, you will die. That idea of either you die or I do is very similar to the original Insane Ball, which got changed for being too obnoxious. Would this be used if it were in-game? Absolutely. Would it ever get in the game? Absolutely not. Our last set of spells for this video, which also have great artwork. Magma Titan would be balanced, but I feel like it would be tedious to code. First of all, if there's a fire trap on the enemy, it becomes 10% more dangerous, but what if that trap is already potent? Would it go to the next trap? Would the potent effect not work? Besides that, this would be a solid single target for fire wizards, but I really can't tell if this would be used a lot in PvP. Icicle collapses a 9 pip ice AoE which does a fair amount of damage, but more importantly, bolsters a shield on you. This would be great on an 80% shield, but the 9 pip cost is pretty steep. The spell itself does more damage than Frost Giant, so there's that. This would be used all around the board, but it wouldn't be a deck stable. Thunderclap is weak for a storm spell. The only comparable single target hits are King Art and Leviathan, both of which do the same or more damage for less pips. The utility is alright, but it's being used up immediately by the spell itself. This would not be used. Javelin Barrage is a spell where, if the target you click on has a shield, that shield would be reduced by 25%, and then it would do damage to the rest of the enemies. Like Icicle Collapse, I can see this being used, but it wouldn't be a deck staple. Nature's Referendum is alright. The spell itself is good on paper, but the problem is that the only 2 spells that would set up a heal over time on all of your allies are Scion of Life and Wings of Fate. You'd realistically need 2 life wizards to pull off a combo like that, and that's a big ask. Poisonous Spores utility is kind of mid. It duplicates 1 negative charm on your enemy, which wouldn't be that helpful 4 out of 5 times. The damage itself is alright, but it definitely wouldn't see any use in PvE. In PvP it might see use, but PvP heads will have to confirm that. For our last spell we have Mander Retaliation. It would be funny if this did more damage to Crocs, but I digress. Its utility is awkward and looks complicated for no reason, but its damage is actually really good. For its damage alone, it would see use in PvP, but not PvE. Thank you for watching, and if you haven't already, watch my previous video where I created custom sounds for all 42 of the different weavings. See you later.